Welcome to the K-State Insiders, your Kansas State sports show. Now, let's head into the studio.
Welcome in here to the K-State Insiders. I am hosting today. Fitz is right there.
Did you have
me is
stroke?
Carmody. What's up?
Hello, this is Ryan Gilbert.
I get nervous hosting, Fitz. You just do it so well. It's tough to replicate. Cole's under me. Our guest here this week is Scott McFarland from Bosco's Boys. Scott, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, anytime. I got to say, the last time Tim asked me to do this, I was like, I can't. Please keep me in the loop. So when you asked me, I was like, oh, no. Is the boss man mad at me? He's like, all right, someone else has to ask this guy because I don't want to be anywhere around him. So I'm happy to be here. Always a fan of your guys' show, the original K-State Sports Podcast. So happy to be here, and I can't wait to hear what topics we're going to talk about.
I love you, Scott. I'm not mad at you. I just had to go to a Chamber of Commerce event. We were going to do this at 7, and then I realized, the Chamber event doesn't get over till 7:30.
Oh, how's the Chamber of Commerce in Manhattan going?
Oh, well, it was a very busy event. There was a guy named Colin that spoke.
Oh, interesting. I know
really
a couple
tall.
Collins.
I don't know what he was talking about.
Was he a basketball player?
I think so. I think it was an athlete of some sort.
Married to a women's basketball player, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But no, anyhow, Colin spoke, and I thought it'd be like, a good 5-10 minutes, great content. That's 3. It was 3 minutes.
Talk about.
So it's going to be part of tomorrow's daily delivery, so I don't have to work very hard.
I mean, it could just be the daily delivery. I mean,
yes.
get your ads in there, tell everyone to subscribe, and then 3 minutes of Colin, and then boom.
You got it. You nailed it. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to do about a minute of it open and then turn over to Colin, and I'll be done with it. It's going to be great.
Speaking of daily deliveries, Fitz, that's all you've been talking about as of late is Kansas State not going to a bowl. So if you have any other thoughts, feel free. But Scott, what is your take on K-State not going bowling?
Yeah, I think I'm on the complete other side of the spectrum of this, right? And I want to preface it by saying I 100% understand the arguments. Everyone says, hey, close the chapter. Hey, move on. I understand even the ideas of, okay, how much can you really take from these bowl practices and how many coaches or players would you have? So my soapbox isn't necessarily saying, hey, this would be beneficial for K-State, or hey, this is what would be best for K-State in the long term. But my soapbox is kind of what is happening to college football, right? It is not a, hey, this is just a K-State issue, right? Because the most egregious bowl decline of the entire season is not K-State, it's not Iowa State, it's Notre Dame. But we've gotten to a point where it has become so commonplace to have folks say bowl games don't matter, none of this matters. If you're not in the playoff, it doesn't matter, all this sort of stuff. And when I see the school I love that I braved through, cold, snow, a bunch of wind because I wanted to see those guys get bowl eligible. And I was looking forward to getting one more game, seeing some of these seniors, some of these guys who have been there for 7 years. Dr. Taylor Portier, he was going to get one final game with K-State. I was so excited for that. And when the idea of, okay, Chris Kleiman's retiring, I was hoping, okay, he's going to come back. He's going to, coach that bowl game. And I said, damn it, I'd even go to Memphis to see Coach Kleiman do one more game. I would go to Shreveport, Louisiana. I would go to the Moon, to see one more Chris Kleiman game and one more game with this group. So when it came out, when Gene Taylor said, hey, I'm going to talk to the team, and when it seemed like Chris Kleiman, I don't want to say quit because, he didn't quit. He retired. But when it seemed like he was just done with this, and when the players decided, okay, we're just done with this, I got real disappointed. And then eating the $500,000 fine, which I think is actually going to come out of the conference distribution, right? I don't think Gene Taylor's going to write a comedic large check and hand it over to, the conference at media days or at the Big 12 tournament. But, when you're eating $500,000, that's about the budget that they have for quality control coaches, for analysts, and some of the support staff. So as you're trying to ramp everything up, and when you sold a home game in part to get, anywhere, depending on who you talk to, $2.1 to $2.8 million, when you're doing that sort of stuff in this world where you're having to worry about money, it just didn't pass the sniff test. And I'm Gene Taylor's biggest fan. I get in trouble with some of my own listeners for how much I love Gene Taylor. I think this lacked a little bit of leadership, not only from him, from Chris Kleiman, some of the players in the locker room, because I really wanted to see them finish out this season. So that's my soapbox. All of that said, hey, it is the Colin Klein era. If it is time to close the chapter, move on, that's okay. But that's my perspective. I acknowledge I think I'm probably in the minority based on how I've seen a lot of K-State fans talk about this, but that's my take on it.
People have their takes. People have their opinions. There's no doubt about that. But if you were like 50-50, if you're K-State on going bowling or not, and you throw in that $500,000 fine, it's like, okay, let's just go. Let's get enough guys and coaches and do this thing. But to still decline it, that just shows you how far away this was from happening, right? If you were on the fence in any way, you were going to go. But Cole, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's initially, I think I was in the camp of Scott. I was a little bit maybe more perplexed than anything else, right? Like, obviously that report came out there that said K-State's going to decline a bowl game. And then we heard, well, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Yeah, that's not necessarily the case. Sounds like that, this decision was not from the coaching staff. It wasn't necessarily even from the athletic department. This is a player situation where you had a group of players who wanted to play and a group of players who maybe it's not that they didn't want to play, but they just decided that it wasn't in their best interest for whatever reason. And there's no doubt in my mind that if Chris Kleiman would have said at his press conference, I want to coach the bowl game, we'd be talking about a bowl. Like there's zero question in my mind that had he said that, they would have accepted a bowl bid, right? Like, you want to finish the season out with your coach. And so in a way, like, it sucks, I think, maybe more so for fans than it does for every other, group of people associated with K-State football. Yeah, I totally understand why the fans wanted one more game. You want more football. Like, we see the NFL, they play 17 games. You get 12 Saturdays. In college football, you want as much football as you can possibly get. And so when you have an opportunity to play another game and your favorite school says, we'll pass, that's frustrating for fans. And I get that. But, fans can't want to play more than the players want to play. I think that's the big red flag, right? And the same thing goes with coaches, because as we know, there's going to be a lot of coaching staff changes, and we're going to get into that. But yeah, I mean, now that it's been a few days, like, I understand the decision. I still, I wish that they would have all decided they wanted to play. I don't think it would have done K-State any good to go out there and look like 2021 LSU. No, that is not something anybody wanted to see. And if that was going to be the case, and you were going to have Brian the Pack as your head coach, and you were going to have, Isaac Cook and whoever else playing wide receiver, like, no offense to those guys, but that's not anything that fans wanted to see. If Chris Kleiman would have said, I am going to go out there and coach the last game, I think all the coaches would have rallied around that. I think the players would have rallied around it, and they would have played. But ultimately, that's not what happened. And Fitz, I go back to this. I'm a history guy, so every time I'm not comparing the two, but Richard Nixon gets on the airplane and goes like this and pieces out. That's kind of like what Chris Kleiman did. He walks like, okay, bye everybody, and walks straight out of the door in the press conference.
I think Kleiman walked out the door and got in the car.
Yeah.
I seriously do. I think he walked out the door from talking to the fans and media at that event and went out the front door, got in his car, and they headed to Fargo. Because he was at the North Dakota State's game on Saturday. Look, I want whatever's best for the program. That's simply what I want. When Chris Kleiman was around, and I thought he was coming back, and he told me he was coming back. I think the Utah game changed everything, but it's good for the program. You get that's just the whole cadence of season bowl game practices into the off season. It all carries over. You can work on stuff. You can work younger players and all that. And it helps you go right into the next off season. But the next off season is going to be completely different systems, different offense, probably different defense, different coaches. It served no purpose in terms of getting the team better. They'll still be doing strength and conditioning. That's not going to stop probably, but they're just not going to incur any injuries. I mean, how awful would it have been for Avery Johnson to come out and say, "Hey, I'm coming back next year. Go play the bowl game and blow out a knee." Well, what are we doing? There's just turned out to be no purpose and really no appetite for it. Nobody wanted to coach it, and it turns out the players didn't want to play it. And I'm shocked at how many fans wanted them to play it after hearing all season about how much the team sucked. That's all I've heard all year. This team's awful. They don't even want to be there. And I agree with a lot of that until towards the end of the season when they showed some life. But now you want another game? I'm just kind of blown away. And I'm gonna piss people off with this. I just think people like to bitch. And the reason I say that is I like to bitch. I recognize the signs. And people complain about everything nowadays, but the passion with which some people are arguing over this bowl game thing is what caught me off guard. Scott made a very reasonable, I mean, everything he said, I understand. But just calling the team a bunch of quitters and everyone's a quitter. And yeah, well, that's why Kleiman retired, was all of that stuff out in the K-State sphere. It was just too much at some point. He wasn't having fun. He wasn't enjoying his job. Let's just move on. Let's just move on to the client system, which is he's going to hire a whole new coaching staff. He's in town right now doing that. Guys are coming in. We think Trey Scott, the new GM's in place. We'll talk about all this. And he spoke at a Chamber of Commerce event tonight. This is now Colin Klein's program. Let's stop looking back. And let's let him focus on everything. And without the whole distraction of preparations and all that going around, let's just let him focus on building a staff, keeping players on the team, and preparing for the portal while coaching his team at A&M, because he is a man of conviction and his word, and he's going to finish that out. So I don't know. I just think this is best for the program, and that's all I want.
You mentioned the biatching Fitz.
Oh.
On our site, we've had people complain that we do a article for every outgoing transfer. And I know that good chunk of those guys aren't going to be significant players, but Quay Moss is out of the picture, let alone all the injuries that K-State did have to sustain this season. So, and I know Fitz, you've touched that on your daily deliveries, obviously, but obviously you don't have the coaches, but player wise, the outgoing portals players, that it's not going to stop anytime soon, right?
Well, here's my thing is, if you're 50-50, you don't know if you want a portal or not, and they come and say, well, we're going to do bowl prep. Do you really want to do bowl prep if you're going into the portal? Maybe some guys would, but I bet a lot of guys would like to take the time off, get their body healthy, and focus on making a choice. So I think it would have probably expedited some guys going into the portal, which I don't think Colin Klein wants. I think he wants an opportunity to get in front of them and talk to them and, kind of work on them. At least certain guys. Coaches want other guys to go into the portal. But I don't know. I am just astonished at how upset some people are. I'm like, I refuse to believe you were going to go to Shreveport. I don't think you were. I know I was. I was actually kind of looking forward to it because they have these things. They're called giant boats, but they don't go anywhere, guys. They just sit in the water and you gamble. I don't know. We don't have water in Kansas, so I don't know. I can't relate to it. But I was
excited for a trip. I guess I wasn't excited for a trip. I'm excited now that Fitz, I don't think I have to travel with you until like September of next year. That's the
Scott,
biggest win
for
in
a
my
career
book.
change. I might have an opening here pretty soon.
No, I'm going to stick with the secret day job. But if that ever comes, if the guillotine ever comes for me, I'll put the notice out on Twitter and on LinkedIn, and then you can get rid of Ryan Gilbert, and maybe we'll get Mason both from the competition also on the streets, and I can create a bidding war.
Ooh, I like it.
What about
smart.
Arnie Green coming out of retirement?
Ooh,
Be good as well.
Can I put a
all day,
comment up
Arnie?
there?
Go ahead, Cole.
Comment up there? Because I have a feeling this is where we're going. So
Sure.
Colin Klein, obviously in town. This is like very, very funny to me. Sabotage A&M 1998 payback.
Well, 1998 wasn't really their fault.
No.
They just were in the game, right? Aren't we pissed off at Oklahoma?
I shouldn't have tried. That's what we're saying. They should have tried to lose.
Well, you
But
know
is
what?
there-
If Yormark would have been the commissioner back in '98, I guarantee something would have happened and that game wouldn't have gone to overtime. Just throwing that out there.
I had no idea what you're saying.
I want to ask you this, Fitz. Have you seen, like, obviously we don't know who's getting hired. You know, Christian Ellsworth is the one name that's been out there. As you mentioned,
Weber.
Trey Scott, but Christian Ellsworth, the tight ends coach from Texas A&M, is gonna follow Coach Klein to Manhattan, and we think maybe there's gonna be some other names. What do you remember anything like that, like happening with Oklahoma? You know, when Stoops left, I mean, I know that there was a lot of assistants that left, but just what's that animosity? Is there any animosity? Are guys happy for each other? I'm just so intrigued by that dynamic. And now, obviously, A&M's getting ready to play a playoff game.
Gills, is it all right if I dominate the show you're hosting? Because I've got a great story.
Go ahead.
So go back to 98. All this stuff's going down with Stoops hiring. You know, of course, we knew Mike Stoops would go, and we knew all that. But the concern was recruiting, because signing was in February back then. And Mark Mangino was in charge. He was a recruiting coordinator. And I remember Coach sitting there at a press conference saying, don't worry about it. Mark Mangino's staying with me, and he's in charge of the recruiting. He wasn't. He had lied to Coach Snyder. He was going the whole time. But he had his hand in K-State recruiting on purpose. He did everything in the world to get L. Robertson to decommit and switch to Oklahoma while he was working at Kansas State. So we get to the game, and I don't know this has gone on at this point. That last play, if you go back and watch that play, I'm on the field for that because we could go down to the field. When Sir Parker didn't score, I was literally at the goal line. The defense got no call from above or anywhere. Mike Stoops didn't send in a defensive call. They were, look, I remember Travis Oaks just standing there like, what are we doing? What are we doing? You can be a conspiracy theorist, but it's never sat well with me. The way they orchestrated, not just departing, but almost to undermine the Kansas State program. It wasn't good enough just to leave to Oklahoma. They did not want Kansas State playing for a national title, period. That was bad for business at OU. And they got their way. They accomplished it. Whether it was intentional or not, I don't know. But there was no reason for K-State to lose that game. It was buckled up. It was done. And then all of a sudden, everything changed with the fumble. It was crazy.
I think it's fair to say. I think it's fair to say Colin Klein's a little bit more of a man of integrity than some of those guys who left for Oklahoma. That's like the moral of the story.
We don't benefit from A&M not winning, right? Outside of getting Colin back a little bit earlier. You know, if we've seen it, right? We're seeing it, you know, other spots in college football. If A&M was still in the Big 12, I would bet every cent that I have that Colin Klein would not be allowed to continue on if this was the case. There's not a chance that if A&M was still in the Big 12, that Mike Elko would let Colin Klein or any of these guys stick around, or maybe just Colin, right? Maybe Ellsworth gets to stay. Maybe some of those analysts get to stay. But I think there is no chance that if we were in the conference with A&M, that Colin Klein would be allowed to stick around.
Guys, is it a benefit if A&M wins a national title, or at least plays for one?
I don't think so. That's a whole nother month before he is full time.
That's true. That's true. That gets into the portal and all that.
You want him here full time.
But the more TV exposure you get with that cut to the press box, Colin Klein, new K-State coach, I mean, there's got to be some kind of bump there. But you're right. We need them to win a game, maybe two, and then be done so that he's freed up to do K-State things.
At what point?
You're nicer than me. I want them to lose, 84-77 in the highest scoring regular college football game ever. I want him to put 77 points on the board and lose, and then come home to Manhattan for good. So you're a lot nicer than me, Tim.
When does Mike Elko have any pause in this, guys? Like, is he looking around going, well, I just feel like that's an awkward situation, especially if, that he does take multiple Texas A&M staffers, maybe guys on both sides of the ball. Like, Elko has come out and said, we are fine. We want guys to leave to go take higher positions. What we want to avoid is guys taking assistant coaching positions at other schools. And that is literally what's happening. And so at what point does he kind of look over his shoulder? Like, K-State is not doing this on purpose. Colin Klein is not trying to sabotage Mike Elko. He wants to win this year and then build a staff that's going to help him be in that spot where they are next year. But at what point does Elko look over his shoulder and maybe kind of feel a certain way? It feels awkward, guys. Like, it just feels awkward.
But this happens, and you're not wrong, Cole. This happens at every school, every coaching change. If it is before the season truly ends, I think Elko kind of, I wouldn't say expects it to happen, but I think he's okay accepting that. Yeah, Colin's gonna have his guys and take the ones that he wants.
Well, and then also a lot of the guys Elko brought from Duke with him to A&M. I mean, yeah. I believe everything in my head's correct. I believe the associate head coach at Texas A&M, their running backs coach, Trooper Taylor, he was the associate head coach at Duke, and he was their head coach for that bowl game. So he's gone through it on the other end of it. So again, he didn't stick around at Duke. He left. But I think he understands, all right, I can depend on these guys to do the job if they are here. But again, I think it would be best for K-State, not for A&M to go on a big run, but for them to have a good night on offense, but their defense just doesn't get it done. And then Colin and all his buddies from College Station fly north to Manhattan. And then, local realtors and mortgage folks can get them new houses in the Flint Hills.
You know what? I'm changing my opinion. Scott convinced me.
Let's go back to talking about the bowl games. Let's see if I can really pull one over you.
What do y'all say? So it sounds like there's only going to be a couple at most staff members kept
right.
From Chris Kleinman's staff. Does that surprise you, or is that, Fitz? I'll go with you first. Does that kind of just show that the ante is really being upped here with Colin Klein?
Yeah, it does. I mean, we're confident Brian LePac will stay. They were tight. And if you don't know, LePac's, I know everyone bitched about his offensive line coaching. And they got remarkably better as the season went. But he is a very knowledgeable, bright, he's a future offensive coordinator. He really is. Probably a head coach. I think he's staying for sure. There was talk about Clanderman. There was talk about Buddy Wyatt, Ryan Anderson a little bit. But as I sit here today and I look at the list we're compiling, that Cole is all over for our subscribers of coaches that are on the list, I don't think anybody else offensively has a chance of staying. I mean, there's so many guys that want to come with Colin, I think. Defensively, it's a little bit more vague, right, Cole? A little bit harder to decipher. But I just don't think anyone's going to stay. Whoever's coordinator wants their guys. They don't want a former coordinator like Clanderman. I guess Clanderman's shot is two people say no, and he goes ahead and keeps him. I know Colin likes these guys. You just want your guys. And one of the things we're noticing about this is it's going to be young guys with a lot of recruiting teeth. It's going to be a completely different staff. But, fellas, the world of college football favors the young now. It just does. The way everything's set up, the grind, the recruiting, the NIL crap, the portal, it all favors the young. And Chris Kleinman is a casualty of that. And there's a lot of other coaches out there who are just sick of this crap, who got into college coaching and now have to negotiate contracts with players. It's a weird world.
The defense, I think, is the most interesting. Like, I think offensively, you're going to be able to find guys if you're Colin Klein. Like, through people, maybe you wanted this guy. Well, this guy said, I can't do it, but I know a guy. Through people, you're going to be able to vet people and get who you want offensively. And let's be completely honest, guys. That is the side of the ball that needs the makeover the most. I mean, just between the recruiting side of things and the on-field performance, it wasn't that good this year. And so I think that's probably the side that needs it the most. But, you bring up Brian Anderson. I think he's a fine running back coach, but who's to say that he even wants to continue coaching on a staff without Chris Kleinman? That's the other thing. Brian Anderson comes from North Dakota State. Joe Clanderman comes from North Dakota State. Like these guys, do they want to continue coaching with a staff where Chris Kleiman is not their head coach? Like that is the question that I think that we have to ask. And not anything against Colin Klein, but I could see some of these guys being like, okay, that's fine. I'm going to take a year off and then I'm going to figure out what I want to do and go from there. And so you're right. I think unless something drastic happens, I think you could probably count on Brian LePack being on the staff in some form or another. But I'm also not 100% sold that if there's somebody comes along that Colin just can't say no to, that he wouldn't replace him. And so that's kind of where we are right now. We know he's swinging for the fences, but the defensive side of things is really, really what I'm intrigued about, because those were all of Kleiman's guys. And you talked about Klanderman. Joe Klanderman's never been a defensive coordinator without Chris Kleiman. That's something to keep in mind too. Mm-hmm. Scott, I'm sure you have some thoughts on this, but that's just kind of where I'm at as we sit on, Wednesday night.
Just to clarify, Brian Anderson was not a North Dakota State guy, but he came here to work with Chris Kleiman. And he only brought 2 guys from NDSU, right? Riley and Klanderman? Am I forgetting
Jason Ray.
Jason Ray.
Yeah.
And that started the revolving door of crappy receiver coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Anderson, Connor Riley was an MVP coach, but I think you make an argument that the best coach, most effective coach on this staff was Brian Anderson.
Well, the thing about Brian Anderson and where I would think to myself, all right, maybe he is a guy who should stick around. When you look at him taking Deuce Vaughn, and I think he had a Missouri and Arkansas offer, right? But he turned him into a 2-time consensus All-American. He took a 0-star, guy that we didn't know if he could even qualify in DJ Giddens and turn him into what I believe is a Mount Rushmore running back at K-State. So he has proven that he can take, a ball of clay and turn it into, a 7-foot-tall statue. But to Cole's point, and I think what everyone's been dancing around, do you want to be, just a holdover if you aren't truly that guy's guy, right? Is Brian Anderson going to say, hey, I know Colin, I got along well with Colin, but do I really want to stick around if I'm not his guy? Because you'd always be looking over your shoulder. You'd always kind of be looking down, when you're at the coaching convention in San Antonio thinking, maybe I'll take this job. Maybe I'll take that job if you were not the pick. So I would be fine if Brian LePack stayed. I'd be fine if Brian Anderson stayed. I'd be fine. Heck, I truly would be fine if Joe Klanderman stayed as the defensive coordinator. I think this year was rough, but when you look at some of the advanced analytics around the defense, it's been a consistently top 30 defense under Joe Klanderman. But at the same time, I wouldn't fault those guys. And if you're confident in yourself, you'd say, no, I want to go be someone's number 1 pick. Or heck, Joe Klanderman, who's to say that, there isn't an FCS head coaching job that he's like, no, now is my time. I want to run a program my way, maybe not at a school the size I'd like, but maybe it's his time to, be at like an Illinois State or something at that level. Sorry, I'm not trying to fire whoever the Illinois State head coach is, but I think Joe Klanderman would thrive at that level, and maybe it's just time for him to be a head coach at a lower level. So, regardless, I'm going to support Colin, whatever staff he puts together. I think K-State fans should probably give him that grace, give him that first staff where we all back it. Now, if he brings in a bunch of stinkers, if there's a couple position groups and coordinators who just aren't good, then that's probably when I would start to question stuff. But right now, bring in whoever you want, number 7, and I'm going to back you. But if you're asking me a year from now, I might have some other opinions.
Correction, by the way, Brian Anderson, Illinois State before, but he's been with Chris Kleiman. Illinois State. It's on the top of the mind.
Yeah, okay, so
been with Chris Kleiman.
So Brian Anderson and Joe Klanderman go back to Illinois State, and then they start challenging in the Missouri Valley.
There you go.
Firing all
I think Klanderman has had some near misses on FBS head coaching jobs.
Again, it's all rumors at this point, right? But at one point, someone was telling me last year that he was a finalist for that Tulsa job, which also allegedly was one of Colin Klein's first head coaching, interviews. And he sounds like he went through it just for practice. I don't think he ever really had much intention on accepting it. But I heard Joe Klanderman might have been a finalist for Tulsa. But at this point, I think the carousel's not spinning right now unless Michigan really starts making stuff fun. But he might have to go down a level.
Cole, give us the update on your assistant hot board. What's the latest there?
Yeah, I mean,
not what's going on in it, but what to expect.
Yeah, I think you mean as far as what we're going to have later. I mean, I would think first of all, I think we're going to have another hot board out, maybe not tomorrow, but the day after.
Yep.
The last time that we did, Trey Scott was the guy that we talked about, hired as the GM. So I think that, that's interesting of note. Maybe we can talk about him next, but, and then immediately after that, obviously Christian Ellsworth is the guy we talked about. So, there's some names that we're going to have on there. There's, I think I added maybe 2 names, but really it's going to start to turn to more defense because I have a feeling we're going to start to have some more offensive names get out there soon. And guys, I don't know. And Fitz, maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong, but with Colin back here, you would think that this process maybe gets sped up just a touch. Maybe I'm totally off on that. But
I think everything in college football now, there's no time to wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look how Colin was hired. Chris retires. It was done. I mean, it didn't happen in one day, folks.
No, he didn't have his number. What are you talking about?
Gene didn't have his number, but Gene had the agent's number, I guarantee you. And there was plenty of communication going on. This didn't happen overnight. But
you mean Gene wasn't texting Colin before every A&M game and telling him good luck?
As long as you didn't text him at 9 p.m. nighty night, I'm fine with any text. By the way, that's a callback to Bruce Weber recruiting Jacob Poland.
Oh, well, I was making reference to Jamie Pollard allegedly texting Mr. Jimmy Rogers. That seems like a violation. I don't think a sitting AD should be texting a sitting head coach before every single game, but Jamie Pollard's a weird one.
What was the Poland text, Fitz?
Nighty night.
What's the
like at nighttime? He was just doing his daily text. Said nighty night.
I can't tell if you're being serious.
I'm serious. These
are the types of things you send me every night, Fitz.
Well, I know, but
And then is that when he told him that he wasn't good enough to play at Illinois?
Yeah, basically. But nighty night.
Yeah.
Wow. Reminder: everybody, super chats are wide open. If you want your comment right up here on the screen, you know how to do that. What do you guys think? We do a little hoops talk? No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Cole, me and you are heading up to Omaha on Saturday. I guess we're going up on Friday, staying the night. But this is coming into the year. This was a big opportunity for K-State to pick up a true resume booster. Now, Creighton's 5-4, and it's suddenly your non-conference resume is in trouble. And I'm going to have a piece on this on GoPowercat up on Thursday. But you don't have a quadrant 1 win yet, and unless Creighton turns things around, that's not going to be a quadrant 1 game. I mean, that's a team that's up in the 90s or the hundreds of the net ratings. So obviously, if you win it, you don't necessarily gain much. But boy, if you lose, your last 2 games mean nothing for your resume in March Madness. So this was K-State's problem last year. Had a hot spurt in Big 12 play, but the non-conference was just glaringly bad. This is your last opportunity. Even though Creighton's not great, this is your last opportunity to show the committee, hey, we at least did something out of the conference. And I understand Mississippi State was a good win on the court, but boy, that's a team that is also tanked.
This is an important game because if there's any non-conference, win that you feel like that team can turn it around, it's probably Creighton.
Sure.
Will they be able to turn it around enough to make an NCAA tournament? If they're going to be 5-5 if they lose to this game to K-State, which I think is a very realistic possibility. If you go and you look at ticket prices right now in Omaha, you can get in for like $12. Like there is a ton of tickets up there. So if you want to go watch basketball, it's definitely wide open.
I want to point out I had no problem getting you guys a hotel room right next to the arena.
Yes, thank you for that. So there you go.
Yeah, we know you don't like to walk, so I'm glad you are not making us walk far.
It's going to be I think it's a winnable game. I really do. I mean, Creighton lost to Nebraska by 21 points, and I get that Nebraska is really good. They're playing right now as we record this. They're beating Wisconsin at home. Nebraska
watching Nebraska basketball right now.
I am a glutton for punishment. Yes.
Wow.
But there you go. So like I think this is a game where if you see the K-State team that you saw the first 6 games of the season, they could win this game. If you saw the K-State team that played the ensuing, what would that be, 3? No, they're not going to win. Maybe I'm way off on that, but that's kind of where I sit with this game on Saturday.
Mississippi Valley State is literally the worst team in college basketball. Go look at any metric system, and that's what you'll be told. But Scott, even though that's a really bad Delta Devils team, does that give you what you saw on Monday? Does that give you any confidence, just a glimmer of hope that things are going to be okay? Yes or no?
No, not a chance. Again, when they're having to play a Division III school that the only male student member bodies are the basketball team. I don't know if that's actually true or not, but I really think, and I hate to say this, right? I really think that if we were playing Washburn, one of the creme de la creme in Division II in the MIAA, I think that they could give this K-State team a fit unless K-State was hot from 3. And that's the scary part, right? If it's a loser leaves town match with Creighton, right? The loser, you basically say, all right, outside of just getting unbelievably hot in conference play, maybe you're playing in Vegas or maybe you're playing in the NIT, but NCAA hopes are basically dead. And I just have a hard time looking at what we've seen ever since that Nebraska game. I just have a hard time seeing K-State beating a team with a pulse. Now, if you want me to get optimistic, and I've tried to be optimistic, I used to try to do this whole don't melt down about basketball until at least Christmas. But Bowling Green broke me this year. Wichita State broke me the year before. The one thing that gives me hope
you lasted a while last year, Scott. Credit to you.
I know. And I remember going home from the Butler game, or not Butler. The Bulldogs, Drake Bulldogs in Kansas City. And I remember Cole doing like a spaces on Twitter. And I remember getting on there and saying, it looks bad, but if you just win out and you get hot in conference play, there's still enough quad 1 victories. And then a couple, a week later, we don't even have a pulse for Wichita State. I'm like, no, I'm done.
Yeah.
If you can get PJ Haggerty remembering, hey, I know how to hit free throws. If you can have Abdi Bashir, hit 5 threes and only, get done and dusted to the rim, traffic cone defense a handful of times instead of every time down the court, then you have a shot at winning. And then I could squint. I could say, all right, maybe we get hot. Maybe AJ DeBunsa, shuts it down and he's done, right? Or maybe Darren Peterson just decides to not get on the bus to Bramlage and we get hot, we win our home games and you win enough on the road and hey, we're in Dayton. But I am just hanging on a thread. And if we don't look like we're even interested in playing, if it is, if it's the Matthew Driscoll defense without the offense and we get blown out by Creighton, I might just shut down the podcast until the summer because I can't do another winter of talking about this type of basketball. And you're just trading, very, very bad offense for very, very bad defense. And it's just the exact same. So I'm hanging on a thread, beat Creighton. I can convince myself, but I'm close to shutting it down, Ryan. And I don't want to. I really don't want to. There you go. Creighton sucks. Let's win this by 30.
There you go. Net ratings,
curious
106.
what the line will be, because just going off of this year, K-State should be a favorite, even though it's on the road. But Fitz, I wanted to ask you, boss, there's been a lot of problems over the last 5 games, even including that win. But the one player, I don't want to call anybody out, but PJ Haggerty has not been himself. If you've watched these games, It's very obvious. It seems like it's something just mental. When you're missing free throw after free throw, that's all mental. And I ask you, what's gotten into him? I mean, is he still the nation's leading scorer? I think I checked. He still is. Yeah, Cole. He's still the nation's leading scorer. But what we saw the first 5 games has been a lot different since.
This is a guy who's been around 80% for his career. And all of a sudden he can't hit 50%. It doesn't make sense to me. I think he got spoiled by a lot of calls. He was getting those kind of ridiculous and ones, like what's a defensive guy supposed to do in that? There's nothing to be done. And now he doesn't get them. It's almost like word went out, stop giving me this call. And now he's just trying to get the call. He's more worried about getting the call than making the basket.
Yep.
And I think it's dented all of his confidence. I think this team's confidence on the offensive end is collapsed, which is weird. And the only good thing to come out of beating the living daylights out of a horrible team. It's like Gills, he's all fit and tan, and he's not feeling good about himself. So he goes down to the beach and finds a guy named Toby, who's a little bit smaller, and just beats the crap out of him to feel better about himself. That's what happened with Mississippi Valley State. Just beat the crap out of a little guy much smaller than them.
I would love if I could go to a beach, but Jerome Tang and I don't think K-State's ever going back to the Caribbean ever again with this whole new era.
No. Look, guys, normally with this kind of start and with what they showed early in the season, I'd be the one saying, look, calm down. They'll get in the Big 12. They'll get enough wins and they can still get in the tournament. Look, even the team that we saw earlier in the year was going to struggle to get to 500 in this conference. I have seen a lot of great basketball in the Big 12. There has never been a year like this. Never. I mean, right now in Big B's Big 12 Insiders Power Ratings, Houston's 4. Kansas is 5. And nobody's arguing with that. That's how good Arizona and Iowa State and BYU have been.
So does he have Texas Tech at 6?
Oh, hold on. Maybe Texas Tech is up in there too. I'm very confused. It was like maybe KU 6. It's like the top 6 are all elite.
I mean, because just looking at the AP poll, you have Iowa State at 4, Arizona at 1, BYU at 10, Houston at 7, Texas Tech at 16, and those lowly Jayhawks, they suck. 19 in the country. Just absolutely putting it on Mizzou, who was, I think, only had 1 loss before that.
That BYU
and that's
game.
not even talking about Baylor.
Right.
Actually, I take that back. I think Baylor might suck. I take that back. I think Baylor's they're gonna be hanging out with us in the bottom half of that. They lost to Memphis with Doug McDaniel as the starting point guard. So,
can I make a point about PJ Haggerty?
Go ahead.
72% from the line this year. Last year, he shot 82%. I'm not going to defend this team for losing 4 games in a row. Jerome Tang made a point. First of all, his press conference on, was that Monday night? Very matter-of-factly, he literally said, I want to see us play a good team. He could have said real team because you could tell that's what he was talking about. I don't think he was very happy this game was on the schedule. Or maybe he wasn't happy where it fell, but they played their starters for 35 minutes in this game, 34 minutes. They played those guys for a long time. My point about PJ Haggerty is this. You're right. He got used to the whistle. And the problem is what would happen is he would get hammered and hammered and hammered and no call until finally he gets the call. Well, he's so flustered because he hadn't been getting the calls that he takes that with him to the free throw line and he gets in his own head and he misses his free throws. The only good thing I think that came out of that game was the fact that they were able to see the ball go through the net. I know people laugh at that, but there really is something to that. It's kind of like in baseball. I'm going to use a baseball analogy here.
Here we go.
When you go from facing, a major league, you're a major league hitter, you get injured, you go down to A ball and you see 92 instead of 97 on a nightly basis. Okay, you hit a line drive, you're like, all right, I'm back in business. That was kind of what K-State did on Monday. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not optimistic for the rest of the season, but I do think this game on Saturday is huge because let's see what this team is made of. We think we know, but I mean, Jerome Tang obviously is talking about this group much differently than he was talking about last year's group. I mean, that is incredibly evident. And I don't know if there's anything to that, but I'm noticing it. I'll just say that.
I want to have a point of clarification. Mississippi Valley State was not a 92 mile per hour fastball. They were a 66 mile per hour hang curve.
Okay. Yeah.
That's pretty generous, Fitz. That's still generous.
Yeah, that's BP in the home run derby.
Right.
It's horrible. Everyone likes to, the Twitter folks' new favorite hobby is to always go after D. Scott for, some of the stuff he writes. Did you guys see the headline that the Mississippi Valley State sports information director had to pull out for that game?
Did see that.
Yeah.
What would
only
you
fouled
like to
12
witness?
times.
Oh,
That was the headline. We only fouled 12 times. Imagine that being your job.
I think the
Woof.
referees were ready to go home too, by the way.
They should have fouled more. Looking at K-State's free throw numbers on the
No doubt.
season, I think K-State, to its credit, actually was successful from the line. But
I think we were good. Like free throw percentage wise, I think we were pretty darn good until, the 2-game stretch where it just became evident that they had the yips. At least I think so. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but
there were some issues early on, but it became very glaring in the last couple of games. But my take on PJ, guys, you got to go and put the ball through the net. Like, that's what you're supposed to do in basketball. You're supposed to score.
What?
When you start, I know rocket science fits, right?
I cover what?
When you start just going in and trying to get somebody off their feet and trying to draw contact just so you can get to the free throw line, that's not scoring. That's not playing basketball. So
Yeah, I'm not a
PJ
fan of
Haggerty
that.
against a bad team, a bad defense, was able to score, what was he, 5 of 8 or something like that from beyond the arc against Mississippi Valley State. Like, I'm not saying that's what PJ needs to be, but that's playing offense. That's scoring. Okay. PJ Haggerty's going to have to be a dog in the paint and get that contact in the Big 12. You have to do that. But you've got such great pieces surrounding you that you don't have to go out and be Superman. Okay. Cole, to your point, like, Jerome Tang is much happier right now. I get it. The losses are there. The resume is not great, but anybody on planet Earth would take Haggerty, Bashir, Castillo, Nate Johnson over Coleman Hawkins and Doug McDaniel and whoever else was leading that team.
Look, he wouldn't say it last year. He kept saying these guys care. He didn't care. That was the most.
Coleman Hawkins is on Twitter liking derogatory posts about players right now and going into the DMs of K-State fans saying, hey, see, I wasn't the problem. He is still trying to play the victim, and he's been gone. He needs to just go to Latvia and play basketball. He is my least favorite player to ever wear a K-State uniform. I'm sorry for cutting you off, Tim, but that guy had crocodile tears all year when talking about Twitter and all this type of stuff. He is a keyboard warrior, and he didn't like it when it came back to bite him. I don't cry. I don't say woe is me when Twitter trolls come after me, because you know what? I play the game. That is the cost of playing the game. He was more worried about his social media engagement than he was going on the court. Right. I'm not going to say anything about Doug McDaniel because, I think his career speaks for itself. Even if this team doesn't figure it out, I'm still happy that these guys are wearing the uniform instead of the disaster last year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's a good tip for everyone with last year's team. If you collect a bunch of turds, it's going to smell like shit. And those guys were turds.
We got to get a cuss count on you.
I'm mad tonight. I'm angry. I just spent an hour and a half at a Chamber of Commerce event to hear the new football coach speak for 3 minutes. Check out tomorrow's daily delivery because I'm that lazy. I'm not in a good mood, but
Jerome, he might agree with you. He probably does agree with you, but he's going to make you do push-ups. Just
no,
we're not doing that anymore.
Push-ups.
First of all, Gills has to do my push-ups.
Yep.
It's in his contract. But second of all, I've heard rumors that these guys cuss.
Oh,
Gills,
really?
They made you do push-ups because I couldn't stop cussing at a meeting with them.
Correct.
And now I'm hearing talk that they cuss a lot, but not at breakfast.
I can see Driscoll being a little loose. With
I'm sorry. Despite everything going on in basketball, I love that dude.
Yeah.
He's like an angry little coach elf. I love him. I don't know. I feel for him right now. He left a perfectly good job.
He's making more money at K-State.
But he got a lot more money.
Yeah, but does money buy you happiness?
Yeah. Well, he's a power.
I can be miserable poor too.
What do you
Okay,
think we end on a high note, guys? Cole, go ahead real quick.
no, this is the last point I'm going to make about basketball. Okay.
No, I got basketball too. We're not done with basketball.
Okay, good. All right. Well, so this is why this game is important. Kind of wrapping this whole thing up. This is why this game is important. This game is important because if you win this game, I think you can kind of, not fooling yourself, but you can talk to yourself and you can tell yourself, see, we win it. We went on the road. We beat a quality opponent, because that's what the messaging is going to be after the game. We went on the road. We beat a quality opponent. We prepared ourselves for the Big 12 play. Now we just need to be more consistent. If they win, that's exactly what Jerome is going to say, because that is the message that he is going to tell his guys, even if he knows that Creighton is not a good basketball team. And guys, I don't disagree with him. That needs to be the messaging. You need to tell your guys, you have an opportunity to pick up a road win, to pick up a quality win. Even if it doesn't turn into one, you have to have that mindset, because if you sleepwalk into that game and you lose, well, it's really hard to I don't know if it's going to be hard to get your team up, but you're looking at it. You're like, okay, you can squint. You win this game. You'd be 7-4 with 2 cupcakes coming into Bramlage, 2 really bad teams
at the end of non-con.
Be 8-4 at the end of non-con,
or 9-4. Sorry,
9-4. And I'm not saying I would have signed up for 9-4 at the end of non-conference, but 9-4 is better than where they have been. So that's why this game's really important. You can kind of lie to yourself and feel a little bit good going into conference play.
I'm taking over hosting because I'm just curious what you guys think. Thumbs up or thumbs down? If K-State were to win out 9-4 after non-con, would 9-9 in Big 12 play be enough? And let's say you win one in Kansas City and lose one in Kansas City.
Oh, absolutely. With this, the strength of schedule will go through the roof just playing in the Big 12. Everything's going to go skyrocketing once you start playing, if you're winning some games.
So you'd be
19
14 after the tournament. Kansas City. I think that gets you in.
I think if you have 17 wins out of Kansas City, you're in.
Whew. So last season, Kansas State was 9-11, correct? There was 2 more games, but they hovered near 500. Well, not even close. Okay, not even close, because of how bad that non-conference slate was. Even if you go out to Creighton and win that game, Fitz, I love you. Please don't fire me.
Hey, look, no, seriously, Nebraska's better than people expected. Cal's playing well. Tulsa's playing well.
Tulsa,
this
for
has
some
been
reason,
a decent non-conference schedule.
Tulsa,
and the
for some reason,
is better than markedly better than last year. So yeah, I think being 8-10 in the conference with enough wins, I think that gets you in this year with the state of the Big 12.
8-10 might be tough, but Gills, to your point, they took on so many losses in the non-con that even with the 9-11 Big 12 slate, they had a losing record. That's why they weren't anywhere around that. If they didn't take on as many losses, because they lost 5 non-con games last year with 2 fewer games. So that's why I think the formula is a little different. I think they need to go 9-9. I don't think 8-10 does it unless you get 2 in Kansas City. But that's the fun part about the Big 12 play. Now, if you don't beat Creighton, or if you don't blow Creighton out, I have a hard time convincing myself 9-9 might be on the table.
What's a blowout?
You don't have any quadrant 1 wins heading into Big 12 play. Even if you win at Creighton, whatever, there's not a quadrant 1 win out there. So you have to win, yes, your big games in the Big 12, but okay, if you go out and lose to, I don't know who the worst team is in the Big 12, like there can be dings on your resume. I'm going to have to just agree to disagree here that 500, regardless what happens these next 3 games, is not going to be good enough. I'm sorry.
I'm hoping
I guess
we win
it's also
out
important. Who do you beat? I mean, if you beat everyone, if K-State's mid-level in the conference, which I don't think they are right now, but if you beat everyone below you, that probably doesn't do it. You got to beat some dudes. You got to go beat some teams.
But if you beat the dudes, that means you lose to the Blaze. So
good point. That was a real technical conversation.
The Blaze.
Yes.
So, okay, can we we're talking about Big 12 play. I'm throwing this out here. Okay. BYU, Arizona to start non-conference play. If you find a way to win one of those games, you are on the right track. But I think everyone can agree that those are 2 probably losses. But you don't have to squint to see some wins at Arizona State, UCF at home, at Oklahoma State, Utah at home. You get your KU at home on January 24th. Then you're at West Virginia. I mean, you're talking about tiers in the Big 12. Those are teams that are very similar to K-State. Those are not teams that are in the next tier, and in that first group of 6 that we were talking about. So if you're going to find a way to get some wins, this is what we talked about on a previous show. You can stack some wins in the beginning part of conference play and really set yourself up nicely.
I agree. What do you guys think we wrap up on a high note we can all get happy with?
Okay.
David Castillo on Monday, right? All hope is not lost. When you have a player, guys, you could go take 1,000 players and 999 of them in college basketball are going to want to start. Because right now, it's all about the name on the back of the jersey. How much can I get in NIL? David Castillo wanting to come off the bench and embracing that and going to Coach Tang and saying that, right? We were better before I started. And once I started, we started losing. I mean, coincidence or not, this team is better without David Castillo in the starting 5. He acknowledged that. He embraced that. Now, the one thing I don't love about it is the fact that he's not starting because I'm a big Castillo fan. But this team, that's the sign of a healthy locker room that David Castillo is happy to embrace the fact that good teams need firepower coming off the bench. And in his words, he's that spark plug.
Yeah, I agree. I love Castillo. He's such a good kid. I wonder who his high school coach was. He did a good job.
This is a trivia question for, I think, only Fitz. He might be the only one to do this. Do you remember a player who definitely was one of the 5 best on a K-State team who elected to come off the bench voluntarily because it was for the betterment of the team?
What, can we get a year?
No.
Jamar Samuels?
He won 6th Man of the Year, the inaugural Big 12 6th Man of the Year. It was not the first year of the Big 12. For Mr. Bob Huggins, he wore a headband. Cartier Martin. He said
really?
because he only started like 12 games that year and none during Big 12 play because he said that the team was better when he came off the bench. He won 6th Man of the Year. Now, that was only an NIT team, so maybe that's a bad omen.
We'll take that.
Should have been a tournament team, though, correct? That same year?
That was one of the biggest meltdowns of my fan life when we did not make the NCAA tournament that year. And it hurt us by getting the bye because I truly believe that if we played in the 5-12 game in the Big 12 tournament and got that extra win, we would have gone to the NCAA tournament.
So this is how screwed up that was, Gills. They get the bye. They're 10-6. They got one of the 4 byes in a 12-team conference. It's a pretty good team. The 5th seed is Tech, and they win. And then K-State beats Tech, right? Bob Knight, Bob Huggins.
I think we lost versus Tech in Kansas, or I think it was Oklahoma City that year.
I seem to remember we win that, and then Tech still got in.
Yeah, Tech got in over Kansas State.
Right.
Yeah, but did we beat them in the Big 12 tournament?
You know what?
It was in the tournament.
Well, no, I'm talking about in Kansas City. I'm pulling up the schedule right now.
Revisionist history. Let's do Fitz history and just believe.
No, we did beat Tech. Oh my God.
They literally beat Tech, and then Tech still got in as a lesser seed with a lesser record in the conference after losing a head-to-head game. Yeah, they still got in.
I think I talked about this with Clint off the air recently. I think he mentioned it was the first time a top 4 seed had ever been left out. A 20-win top 4 seed in a power conference ever get left out.
It was a 20-10 top 4 power team.
I swear someone on that committee had an axe to grind with Bob Huggins and did it.
Oh,
it's these personal relationships that go on behind these committee things that aren't good. Gills, do I get to say my final thing now?
Yeah. Do you have your finger near the end button?
You want me to close it up shop with this?
You can wrap it up. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to say something a lot of you may not understand. It's a great time to be a Kansas State Wildcat. Look, I know basketball stinks, but I'm going to ask you for some positivity. There is so much negativity out there with K-State Nation. I don't know what's into you guys. I just saw Colin Klein speak, and I am so optimistic about the future of K-State football. I don't know if that's next year or the year after. But I think the Cats are going to be something to be reckoned with. And I'm fired up that all of us get to be covering it or watching it, observing it, commenting on it, whatever the hell we do for our channels. It's a good time to be a Wildcat. Just hop on board and enjoy the ride. And some of you just need to just calm down. It's going to be okay. Unless you don't like Ryan Gilbert, then I support you.
Thank you for watching the K-State Insiders. This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production.